This video is brought to you by Squarespace. Released in January 1969, Led Zeppelin's debut album turned on a new generation and changed the face of rock music forever. I'm Andrew from Parlogram, and in this video, I'll not only take you through the entire history of this incredible album, I'll also tell you why this copy is worth thousands and how it could be yours. Before we get into all that, let me tell you about my unusual history with this album. Now, strange as it may seem to regular viewers of this channel, I owned this album long before any Beatles record, and this copy has been with me since I was 3 years old. You see, this was originally my uncle's copy, which he'd bought new in around 1970. And although I don't remember the actual incident, I somehow got my hands on it and for fun made some very large and deep scratches all over side 2. Needless to say, my uncle was not happy. Neither was my mother, as she had to go out and buy him a new one, and this damaged copy has been with me ever since. But for years, I was only able to play side 1. This 2014 remaster is my latest copy, but more about that later. Let's now go way back to the mid-1960s to where it all began. By 1965, Jimmy Page had already made quite a name for himself and was one of the most sought-after session musicians in the country, and had played on hits as diverse as I Can't Explain by The Who to Goldfinger by Shirley Bassey and Petula Clark's Downtown. In February of that year, he was invited to fill the spot in the Yardbirds, which had been vacated by Eric Clapton, but reluctant to give up his lucrative session work, put forward his mate Jeff Beck. In May 1966, he teamed up with Beck to record a track called Beck's Bolero at London's IBC Studios, which gave him the idea of forming a supergroup. But when he floated the idea to The Who's John Entwistle and Keith Moon, they were unenthusiastic about the project, saying that it would go down like a lead balloon. Page finally joined the Yardbirds in June 1966, replacing Paul Samwell Smith, first on bass and then later sharing lead duties with Jeff Beck. The lineup produced only one single, Happenings 10 Years' Time Ago, before Beck's temperamental nature led to his sacking during their US tour that October. But it was the sound of Jeff Beck's Truth album, released in August 1968, which really caught Page's attention and is widely regarded to be the prototype for Led Zeppelin's first album. After Beck's departure from the Yardbirds, Page wanted to take the group in a heavier, more blues-based direction. The only problem was the other band members didn't. Throughout 1968, Page didn't neglect his session work and was still taking part in random sessions all over London. One perhaps lesser-known session he was involved in took place at IBC Studios in the early summer. Inspired by MacArthur Park, which had been released that April, Barry's brother Paul had written a song which, in my opinion, surpasses Jimmy Webb's. Attending the Eloise session with Page was fellow session musician and soon-to-be Led Zeppelin bandmate, bassist John Paul Jones. Now, although there's little evidence of Page's contribution on the final mix of Eloise, it's a different story on the B-side. Love I Almost Found You, also written by Paul Ryan, is an incredibly powerful song and features Barry Ryan's dramatic vocals backed up by Keith Mansfield's stunning orchestral direction. But it also includes a prototype Led Zeppelin solo by Jimmy Page. By August 1968, the band, as it became, played for the first time in a room below a record store in Gerrard Street in London. Just before they left for Scandinavia for their first gigs together as a band, they all took part in sessions at Olympic Sound Studios for PJ Proby's album 3 Week Hero, which was being arranged by John Paul Jones. One of its tracks, called Jim's Blues, features Robert Plant on harmonica, and became the first studio track to feature all 4 future members of Led Zeppelin. Although the album flopped, it's a very entertaining listen, with tracks like Empty Bottles, which was issued as the B-side of Proby's Hanging From Your Loving Tree single in early 1969. Page also found the time to produce famous British eccentric Screaming Lord Sutch's album on Atlantic, which also boasted contributions from John Bonham and Jeff Beck. On September 7th, 1968, Led Zeppelin played together for the first time in front of a live audience at a school in Denmark, but were billed on the tour as the new Yardbirds. The inspiration for the name Led Zeppelin went back to Keith Moon and John Entwistle's comment about Page's supergroup idea going down like a lead balloon. They dropped the A in lead, and the word balloon was replaced by Zeppelin, which, as one music journalist put it, suggested, quote, the perfect combination of heavy and light, combustibility and grace. Back in 1962, the Rolling Stones had drawn their inspiration from classic blues artists like Muddy Waters and Howlin' Wolf, and then went on to develop their own style. But Led Zeppelin's audience in 1969 were a new generation of teenagers who had been too young to take part in that early 60s blues revival or the early years of the Beatles and the Stones. Jimmy Page and Led Zeppelin went further by adding some Hendrix, Cream, Vanilla Fudge, Big Brother to their sound, which succeeded in bridging those rusty old Delta blues with a new heavy rock sound. Whether you're a creator just starting out on your journey, or you're an experienced operator managing an existing brand, this video sponsor Squarespace can help your business get to the level you want it to be. If the thought of designing a website fills you with dread, don't worry. Squarespace's AI Blueprint design system will guide you through every step of the process. Their state-of-the-art drag-and-drop technology, coupled with their award-winning stylish templates, have helped make Squarespace the world's #1 website designing platform, and they can help you get to the top too. As well as being able to sell physical goods in an online store, you can earn income from your site by monetizing your skills, which can be, for example, by offering video courses, memberships, or other gated content to your customers and community. And Squarespace's simple but powerful checkout system help you get paid fast by allowing your customers to pay quickly and easily with credit card, PayPal, or even buy now, pay later with Afterpay and ClearPay. So, what are you waiting for? Head to squarespace.com today for a free trial. And when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/parlogram to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. In late September 1968, without a record contract at this point, Led Zeppelin entered Olympic Sound Studios in Barnes, West London, to record their debut album. Now, Page's guitar of choice for these sessions was not the classic Les Paul he's so often seen with, but a customized Fender Telecaster, which was gifted to him by Jeff Beck when he joined the Yardbirds back in 1965. Glyn Johns, who would a few months later be working with the Beatles on Get Back, was chosen as the engineer and producer, and using a distance makes depth approach to production, ended up producing one of the finest sounding albums of the decade. The basic tracks took just 36 hours to record, at a cost of just £1,782, which works out at around £40,000 today. Before we get into the music and take a look at the tracks on the album, let's have a look at another iconic aspect of this album: the cover. Even today, there are few incidents which are more dramatic than the film of the German Hindenburg airship exploding into flames as it landed at Lakehurst, New Jersey on the 6th of May 1937. Cover designer George Hardy took Sam Scher's iconic photo of that incident and used it for the front cover, which perfectly illustrated Keith Moon's "going down like a lead balloon" comment. The rear panel photo was taken by ex-Yardbirds guitarist Chris Dreyer. When the album was released in the UK on the 13th of January 1969, both the band's name and the Atlantic logo were printed in turquoise. It was switched to the orange print later that year, thus making the original cover highly collectible and, of course, very valuable. In fact, Prices for copies with the turquoise sleeves have rocketed over the past few years, and the lowest priced one on Discogs at the time of filming is £2,600. My early damaged copy is, according to Discogs, version 6, with the grey strip at the bottom of the sleeve, Warner Brothers and dual publishing credits on one line on the label, and hand-corrected matrices. Now, if it were in perfect condition, I might get, say, £100 for it. But even in this shape, it's priceless to me. Anyway, now let's go through this album track by track and find out the stories behind the songs. The sound of Page's Telecaster, played through a Suro amplifier, not only began the album, but heralded a whole new era in rock music. And when it's joined by John Bonham's drums, you're catapulted into the stratosphere. And that's all before Robert Plant has even opened his mouth. Good Times, Bad Times is without doubt the most commercial track on the album, and clocking in at just 2 minutes and 46 seconds, it was the perfect choice for a single. But despite being released as such in many countries around the world, it remained unissued on that format in the UK. Promotional copies were pressed up on Atlantic by Polydor, but as Page didn't want Zeppelin becoming a singles band, he had it withdrawn, instantly making it one of the group's most collectible records. Unusually, despite being one of their best-known songs, it was one they rarely played live, although they memorably opened the Armored Ertegun tribute show with it in December 2007. For me, the song is most notable for John Bonham's perfectly mic'd drums. Although he hit those skins hard, he had a tremendous feel for the instrument, as demonstrated by those incredible triplets on his bass drum, a technique which won him praise from his peers. Just listen to the extracted drum track from this song. His ability to play hard and soft in the same song is astonishing, as is how he locks in with Page's guitar, rather than following the standard bass guitar pattern. If you'd like to try out the stem separation software I used for yourself on your favourite tracks, I highly recommend the amazing La 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 app. Just follow the link in the description and give it a go for yourself. It's great fun. Full disclosure, it is a referral link, and I do get a small kickback if you sign up. A few months later, on the 22nd of January 1969 to be exact, on a Nagra tape recorded during the Beatles' Get Back sessions at Apple Studios in Savile Row, Glyn Johns can be heard briefly playing Good Times, Bad Times in the background while the Beatles are in the middle of rehearsing Don't Let Me Down. And if somebody ever loved me like nobody ever loved me like she does. It was clear how proud Johns was of this album, as he attempted to introduce it to the Beatles 3 days later, on January the 25th. George, however, seemed more interested in his lunch.
George, do you want to hear some of this Jimmy Page album?
Jimmy Page?
Yeah. Just produced an album with his new group.
Is he the one that was in the Yardbirds?
Yeah.
I think his lunch ready.
Jones on bass. You don't ever used him in sessions? He's like the governor. He's very young, he's about 24. The governor bass player.
Oh, I think...
Really good. And a kid called John Bonham on drums, who's...
I think he was on a session with Paul last year, with somebody else with Paul.
Yeah? Yeah. You can catch him burning.
After the intensity of the opening track, Babe I'm Gonna Leave You cools things down and features Page on his Gibson J200 acoustic and Telecaster, accompanied by a restrained Robert Plant vocal. Jimmy Page had heard Joan Baez perform Babe, I'm Gonna Leave You on her 1962 In Concert album. That rendition was in turn a rearrangement of its original 1950s recording by Anne Braden. Original pressings of this album credited the song as traditional arrangement by Jimmy Page, but it's Anne Braden's name which rightly leads the credit on today's pressings. Robert Plant's name has also since been added. One thing I noticed looking at the track listing is that the timings on the original album are different to the ones on the 2014 remaster. Some, in the case of Your Time Is Gonna Come, are a few seconds shorter, while others, like Communication Breakdown, are slightly longer. You Shook Me was a classic blues cover written by Willie Dixon and recorded by Muddy Waters in 1954. Dixon had also written the Rolling Stones hit Little Red Rooster and I Just Want to Make Love to You from their debut album. But the main inspiration for this arrangement came from Jeff Beck's version of it on his album Truth, which he later accused Led Zeppelin of copying. The track includes the innovative and then new backwards echo effect, which is highlighted in the call and response passage between Page's guitar and Plant's vocal at the end of the song. Dazed and Confused, which ends side 1, was credited on the original album as by Jimmy Page, but was in fact written and recorded by Jake Holmes in 1967. Holmes successfully sued for copyright infringement in 2010, which resulted in an out-of-court settlement, and a revision of the credit on the album to by Page, inspired by Jake Holmes. The song was one which had been regularly performed by the Yardbirds and featured a section where Page played his guitar using a violin bow. Although clocking in at just under 6.5 minutes on the album, live renditions of this song would frequently stretch to over 30 minutes and became a vehicle for lengthy improvisations and solos throughout the early part of Zeppelin's career. John Paul Jones's cathedral-like organ opens up side 2 on the Page-Jones composition Your Time Is Gonna Come. He's then joined on acoustic and pedal steel by Jimmy Page, followed by John Bonham's crashing drums. It's a towering performance and was one which gave birth to the earliest cover version of a Led Zeppelin song. That was by Sandy Shaw on her 1969 album Reviewing the Situation, where she also covered tracks by the Beatles and Dr. John, and is well worth seeking out. It crossfades into the second track on side 2, Black Mountain Slide. This showcases Page's skills on the acoustic guitar and was based on folk guitarist Bert Jansch's arrangement of this traditional song. The track which follows, Communication Breakdown, sounds way ahead of its time and has since been cited as the first heavy metal song. It was also the B-side of the Good Times Bad Times single. It's a real group effort and is credited as such, and was one which became a regular part of their live set. For the next track, they turned to another Willie Dixon composition. I Can't Quit You Baby has over the years been recorded by more than 30 artists. Led Zeppelin's version was recorded live in the studio and was performed regularly on stage from 1968 to 1970, but was largely absent from their sets from that point on. How Many More Times was the closing number in their early gigs, so it made sense to them to end the album on that number too. Based around an old Howlin' Wolf song, How Many More Years, and a Jimmy Page riff, the track is basically a jam session played live in the studio and is similar in style to Beck's Bolero, which was also written by Page. It's a track which encapsulates everything that has gone before and is a fitting end to this incredible album. Although initially receiving poor reviews from the likes of Rolling Stone magazine, it went on to sell 8 million copies in the US alone and continues to be a steady seller today among a new generation. Now, as I said earlier, the rarest pressing of this album is the UK first, with the turquoise lettering. Now, although I don't have one of those, I do have something which is worth perhaps 10 times more. This is a German double album called First and Second from 1970, and, as you might guess, contains Led Zeppelin's first 2 albums. In itself, it's not a rare or particularly valuable record. You can pick one up for around €25. But what makes this one worth so much is what's inside the gatefold. Inside are the autographs of all members of Led Zeppelin: John Paul Jones, John Bonham, Robert Plant, and Jimmy Page. Now, the story behind this piece is that it was discovered in a record shop in Vienna, here in Austria, where it was priced as a regular second-hand copy of the album. Although the store owner had checked the records, he hadn't bothered to look inside the gatefold, so someone got the bargain of a lifetime. It's now been consigned to us for sale, and you can view it on our website parallogramauctions.com, a link to which is in the description. Now, we're happy that the signatures are authentic, but if you'd like further information about them or would like to make us a sensible offer, you can get in touch with us via the site or via email. Links to both are also in the description. Now, let's talk about sound quality. For me, the original UK plum label pressings are something special. But not having heard any US pressings, I'm not really qualified to give you a definitive answer on the best sounding pressing. But do drop me a line in the comments and tell me your favourite pressing of this album. To my ears, this 2014 remaster sounds really excellent. It's not expensive, and you can find it new for around $25 on Amazon. I'll put a link in the description if you want to pick it up for yourself. We'll be covering more classic British albums from the 60s over the coming months, so do make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss out on those. Also, feel free to send in your suggestions on which ones you'd like to see us do. In the meantime, why not watch our latest video in that series about David Bowie's debut album? But that's all for this one, so I'll say bye for now and thanks for watching.